A week after India decided to ban the export of non-basmati white rice, there were reactions both domestically and globally. Economists have even questioned the efficacy of the ban and asked if the ban is suitable in terms of reining in price stability and ensuring food security. But one aspect that largely remained unanswered was the effect of the ban on the overall farming community and farmers, to be precise. To discuss these and a lot more, today we are joined by Mr. Uday Bhanu Sinha, a prominent economist. He will explain what does this ban mean for the farmers and the overall farming community. So welcome to the show, sir. Let me begin with this question. In terms of production, mere production, the farmers have to plan much well in advance, in terms of production. And when such a sudden change in trade environment is seen, how difficult is for the farmers to plan such production cycles?
Okay, so first let me begin with the perspective that why the questions that you are raising is important in current context. Okay, so if you look at the export figures of rice, among the total world export, India sells about 40% of the world export of rice. Okay, so which means that India's crucial export in the world export basket, rice has a prominent place. Okay, now if all of a sudden this particular commodity which is being exported to the entire world is banned, so there will be both national as well as international fallout. Okay, now this ban is perfectly within the jurisdiction of any government because all governments are seeking for price stability, firstly in their domestic market, and secondly, they also take advantage of the global ups and downs of prices. So obviously the policies are within the government's hand. Now, in the current context, apparently from the data, it reveals that in the last few months, even in this current year, there are about 8% increase in all these varieties of rice, which is non-basmati white rice. Okay, 8% price rise that has taken place. Okay,
8% increase in terms of prices, you are saying, right?
In terms of prices, it has taken place. Okay, so now given that a vast majority of Indian population, they rely on rice as their main staple food, so the government has certain responsibilities. Okay, so in that sense, a policy has to be adopted. Whether that can rein in the price, how effective that will be, that's a separate question. We'll come to that. Okay, so first is that what is the immediate policy that can be undertaken, given that we are a major exporter of rice. So first that takes the hit is essentially the export. Okay, so if you ban export, there will be plenty of rice available for the domestic market, and as a result of that, it is expected that the price will stabilize. Okay, now the question that you are raising that, okay, we have a ban and the price will be expected to stabilize, but then price stability will bring in joy among the customers or the consumers of the product. Okay, because they were suffering from high inflation, that is higher price. Okay, and now if the price stabilizes, they will enjoy the benefit of this price stability. However, what happens to the farmers? Now, farmers at large, we do not want to answer. We want to answer in parts. So first look at where the ban is effective. Ban is effective on non-basmati white rice. Now, among the states which produce this non-basmati white rice, prominent among them are West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Assam, and Haryana. Okay, so these are the major producers of this rice. We have basmati variety, which is mainly produced by Haryana, Punjab, and UP, along with some part being from Himachal Pradesh and Jammu and Kashmir.
So, but coming specifically to the question on the farmers, how it will impact the farmers. Can we, can we talk about that aspect?
Right. So the immediate effect is if the price is stabilized, price will be reduced, right? So the farmers which are producing this variety of rice will be affected by the low price of the product, okay? Now, when they are affected by the low price of the product, now they are not uniformly affected across the country. That's where my stress is. So the farmers of West Bengal, Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, the farmers will be affected who were actually producing this non-basmati white rice, okay? And large majority of our geographical situations are that they are done in large kind of quantity by large section of the farming community. So the easiest way of substituting to another variety of crop is not possible because of the geographic condition, because of the monsoon. The different agroclimatic condition doesn't allow you to immediately switch to other kind of crop
But
where the prices are
correct me if
higher.
I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. The non-basmati variety of white rice, it constitutes only 25% of the overall export, right? So it's a very minuscule amount of our overall rice exports. Within the larger paradigm of rice exports, the non-basmati white rice is only 25%. Is it right?
I cannot exactly verify that figure, but I think you are talking in terms of the value of the non-basmati
Right. Yes,
rice. Okay,
yes.
but if you look at the premium basmati rice, their value is much higher. So although in terms of the value, it could be 25%, but many countries are actually buying this variety of rice, like part of Africa, your neighboring countries like Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, they are all buying rice from us, okay? So in terms of value, it could be 25%, but in terms of quantity, it could be much more because the premium basmati rice is typically of much higher price, okay? So that's why in terms of value comparisons, you might get lower value for this the kind of exports.
So what you're saying, Mr. Sinha, is that farmers uniformly, they won't be impacted by this ban. There are certain pockets in our country where farmers will be more impacted, right?
Exactly. I'm coming to
Okay.
that.
Now, okay.
So should I elaborate more on that?
No. So coming to the second question, we'll just take that point ahead in just a couple of minutes. Sir, when the government talks about doubling farmers' income, that has been the big, big sort of say of the Modi government. They're saying that doubling farmers' income is one of their premier agendas. So, sir, don't you think this particular ban it also has a bearing on the income aspect?
Yes, it will have serious impact on the income aspect of especially the small and marginal farmers. Because if you look at the producers of this variety of rice, that means non-basmati white rice, they are mainly being sourced from, say, the states like West Bengal, Odisha, Assam, and all these, where the farmers are really marginal farmers, okay? Small and marginal farmers, okay? And the small and marginal farmers, they typically are quite indebted often because for the production they take loans from some lenders, okay, and they are forced to sell their product immediately after harvest. So this is known as distress sale or forced sale immediately after the harvest, okay. Now, as of now, as the ban is imposed, now certainly there will be price reduction. Okay, so they will be forced to sell at a lower price immediately, so their income will be badly affected. Okay, and on the other hand, the agricultural input cost that will remain more or less stable in a sense that given that there will not be much switching to other kind of varieties of product, so all the related agricultural input prices are either stable or they are rising. So the cost side, there is not much change or they are rising. On the revenue side, you have decline. So the income of the small and marginal farmers will definitely be impacted negatively.
Okay. So in terms of the input costs and other subsidiary costs, that remains stable. But in terms of revenue, what they're getting after the output, that will reduce considerably, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, sir, coming to this point of bans over long term, so doesn't it distort incentives for farmers to invest in productive capacity, which is basically looking at the long term aspect to rein in prices and also the supply as such?
So my feeling is that certainly if you think that the ban is going to last long, then obviously that would affect the farmers in terms of their incentives, what they would like to produce tomorrow. Okay, but my feeling is that this ban will be mostly temporary. We have seen that in many other commodities in the past also, agricultural commodities especially, and they were removed as and when the domestic price stability is achieved. Okay, so in terms of the incentive distortion effect, that may not work that well, given that the farmers, first, they don't have much choice in terms of switching to other crops, given the agroclimatic conditions in different states, okay, irrigation facility and many other things, okay, and the kind of temperature and other things. So it is not easy for them to switch. So they will keep on producing the kind of same crop, okay, but their income is falling, okay. But if this kind of ban is going to last for longer, so then definitely, given there is this income implications, the farmers' income will be badly affected, and they need to rethink about their the cropping pattern as well. Okay, so in a sense that they might have to switch to productions where the price stability is more or less there, okay, so that they do not suffer from this kind of the government policy intervention which negatively affect them.
Okay, so what you're saying is that in short term, maybe say if the ban is, it continues for 3 to 4 months, the immediate impact would not be, that severe, right?
Right. Because already the most part of the all these states, they are under sowing season and they have already decided about their production pattern. Okay, so they can't really switch on to other crops immediately, despite this ban.
Okay, so now coming, please, what you're saying, sir, please carry on.
Yeah, so on the other hand, if I come to the Rabi crop season, when many of the states also produce paddy, so they might think twice if this ban continues beyond this December. Okay, so then they might have to switch to some other product which will be more stable in terms of prices, and they might switch to other kind of crop. Okay, away from paddy wherever possible.
So just to get some sort of an idea on this phrase, many economists post July 20th, when the ban was imposed, they have termed it as bad economics and good politics. So what does it, can you elaborate on this phrase a little bit?
So any economist will say that this is not proper because the intervention is essentially tinkering with the market forces, okay? And when you tinker with the market forces, the outcomes are often unpredictable, okay? And if you look at the overall general equilibrium implications, so taking into account producers, and the consumers, the investment related to the activities of trade and production. So sometimes these effects are unpredictable when the government comes with unpredictable policy changes, okay? And you do not know how it will affect. And in most cases, it will affect negatively. However, in terms of price stability, if it is obtained, given that the election is round the corner for the next year, okay, so it is government's kind of under pressure that the consumers or the domestic citizens are getting their food supplies at a stable price, rather than thinking of a long-term consequences which might
so
be
as
there.
you are trying to explain this point, sir, just let me intervene. Is this trade-off even viable in the long term? One hand, you are helping the consumers with some price relaxations, and on the other hand, there is a genuine concern in the farming sector. So is this trade-off even viable in the longer period of time?
In the long run, it is not viable if you believe that you want to allow the market forces to play out, okay? Because you cannot really tinker the market forces and switch or temper the incentive of the different market players, okay? Here I come to with another kind of aspects. Remember that agricultural products exports are not done by a particular small farm. So when I talk about exports of any manufacturing goods. So for example, a particular brand of car, then the company directly is involved with that export. Whereas there's a thousands and thousands of small farmers who do not directly export any of their product. They simply sell their product after harvest. Okay. There are
Right.
various layers of traders involved here. Okay. Now those traders are also going to play with the market. So for example, the small traders will not be having large storage facility, and they would not be able to manipulate much of the market. However, the large traders with large kind of storage facilities, they might like to hoard these product, okay, so that where the ban is imposed. So the immediate price effect, although we are anticipating that it will be in the negative, but it may not come as easily as we are thinking, because there is this prospect of hoarding. And in India, we know that many of our policies are actually sometimes do not work, especially with respect to food grain, because of the hoarding possibilities of these different trading communities. Okay, so small traders, they would not benefit out of it, but the large traders might practice some hoarding. And as a result, as and when the ban is lifted, the price will go up, and they would like to make more profit out of this hoarding. So there will be tendencies of this kind, which needs to be tackled as well. Okay, so that part government has to also take into account, that the possibility of hoarding is also there. Simple banning the export may not solve the problem. That is it.
So when we say that price has risen, in the global market, and when you impose such kind of a ban, so isn't it in the disinterest of the farmers, so that they cannot get exposure to the price rise, so that the global prices which has risen, it is not allowing them to participate in the global trade. So it's a kind of a very bad situation for them.
So this is exactly what I'm raising here, that when you are tinkering with the market forces, you are not allowing the market forces to play out. So as a result, different participants of the markets will be affected differently. Okay, here the farmers are not allowed to reap the benefit of higher prices, whereas when the global prices are low, they are actually bearing the brunt of that lower price. Okay,
Absolutely,
so in that
yes.
sense, you are actually not allowing them to optimize in terms of their production decision, when they actually factor in that there could be high price, there could be low price, and they have some kind of expectations about those prevailing prices, and based on that, they make their decision to undertake certain kind of the cropping pattern.
So now, can you just elaborate a little bit about the variety of economic losses that these producers will actually suffer, because they neither get accurate demand signals nor benefit from the higher prices. So there is expected to be an anomaly in that way.
Actually, for the vast majority of the farmer, there are not many options, as I am repeatedly saying, given the agroclimatic conditions. Okay. Now, I can give you one example in the context of West Bengal. The paddy is cultivated twice in the year. Okay, in many districts. Okay, so now during the monsoon, you don't have much choice. Paddy is the only crop that you can produce. Okay, however, during the other time, so Rabi time, you have the options of producing other kind of the crops. So, for example, potato, mustard seed, and
Right.
other kind of crop. So now, under this kind of uncertainty, which the government, because of the government ban, the producers are facing, they would think twice before undertaking the paddy cultivation in the next round of their the cycle. Okay, within the year. So during the Rabi cultivation, they might not produce paddy if they have option to produce other products. Okay, and if there are kind of they are feasible in their agroclimatic and the irrigation situation.
Okay. Okay. So basically, it puts a dilemma in them to whether to continue with the production in the next cycle, or to opt for some other crop. But as you were rightly saying, that even the choice of opting for some other crop is very limited, because the
Exactly.
agroclimatic conditions do not support it, right?
Right. In most places, they do not support easily. Okay.
So in terms of putting blanket ban on the export scenario, what other ways the government can address such recurring price instabilities? Are there any ways so that even the farmers are not affected to that extent?
Actually, this we have seen for last few years, the entire world is actually suffering from that we do not have very good management in the supply chain, especially for the primary products like agricultural products. Okay. Manufacturing products, to some extent, we can plan ahead of time. Now, most part of agricultural produce is dependent on the climate and any kind of disaster that strike, natural disaster that strike. So now current crisis in terms of slightly lower production of this particular crop, okay, has triggered this particular inflationary situation. Okay. So now that is very difficult to control at a large scale, at a countrywide scale, because you cannot control the supply of that particular product. Now, when you cannot control the supply of that particular product, the only option for the government remains to be that, at least that we have seen for many others. In wheat, we have seen in sugar also. The only option remaining for the government is to restrict the trade to some extent so that the price gets stabilized. But here there is another dimension which I would like to highlight. This ban is on the non-basmati white rice. But then there would be a little bit of substitution that will also take place. The substitution is in the global market, given that this particular variety is not arriving, so there will be some customers who will be moving towards the basmati variety. Okay, so there will be some rise in prices of the basmati variety, and there is no ban on that. And if you look at that aspects, then you know that only few states actually produce basmati variety. Okay, so that will create a regional inequality. So not only that the farmers are having kind of the inequality among themselves within the states because of their small and large the size, but also across states, because some states will benefit from this particular ban because there is this basmati will be on high demand now at the margin, because some people who can afford basmati, they will switch over to basmati as compared to this particular variety in the global market.
Okay, so what you're saying is that there is a tendency of some form of substitution. So the basmati variety may be taken up more by the
yeah, so it will increase in its volume of exports, okay, and more people will be buying it. But in terms of the kind of substitution, it will not be a full substitution, because we all know that basmati is a premium variety, and
right.
it is highly costly.
And there's a lot of difference in terms of prices, right?
The price, huge price difference. So only some marginal consumers will be able to switch over to basmati, and as a result, there will be extra demand for basmati rice in the global market.
So thank you, Professor, once again for talking to us.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.